I'm Jordan Poole from the University of Michigan Basketball. You are watching TR Sports. Please enjoy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to TR Sports. I'm your host, Toby. We are now in week 18 or 17, one of those weeks. I don't remember. We took a 1-week break off the podcast again this summer last week, and the reason for that, and I know I forgot to tell you, but I was going back up to Maine. Connection's really bad up there. Wasn't a lot of news that week. I just didn't think it was worth making a podcast that week. But we are back today, and we have a pretty good lineup to talk about this week. There are 4 separate stories. Number 1 being Antonio Brown and his ridiculous behavior. Number 2 is the Indianapolis Colts and Andrew Luck retiring from the NFL. That is huge news. Then we're going to do an Eagles team talk and then a Lakers team talk to round it out. Not team focus because that's only baseball. So let's hop right into our first story, and that is Antonio Brown. And I mean, so much has changed since, I'm trying to remember, 2 weeks ago, we did our last Antonio Brown story. And it's just, it's almost like Antonio Brown does not want to be a normal player. He does not want to sit and play the game. He wants to be in the drama. He wants to be on the headlines. That's what I'm thinking now. And I'm not going to try to diagnose him with anything mentally because I have no idea. I'm not his doctor. I don't really know what I'm talking about with that anyway. But I want to talk about what the events are and what's happened since the last time we covered AB. And you can make your own decision on what's up with Antonio Brown. So the biggest thing that happened since last Antonio Brown talk, the biggest thing that happened with Antonio Brown since we last talked about him was his huge argument with Mike Mayock. And, we're going to recap how that happened, what happened about that. So, we all know, we talked about it, Antonio Brown missed most of training camp because he did not have his helmet. Of course, he ultimately ended up losing that battle, and he did not retire from football, guys. His threat was kind of, hollow there. But, he does that, and then he gets fined. Mike Mayock sends him a letter. He gets fined. Great. Normal thing. Makes sense. Missed training camp, gets fined. AB's not into that. So he takes a photo of the fine and posts it on Instagram. Why? It's a normal thing. You miss training camp, you're going to get fined. And AB posted it on Instagram. And then Mike Mayock got upset with him and approached the Instagram post. He approached AB about the Instagram post. And Antonio was quite mad about it. And, he kept on cursing and getting mad at Mike Mayock. Even at one point, threatened to punch him in the face. And that's, at that point, right, I read a headline that was Bleacher Report, and Bleacher Report said that Antonio Brown and Mike Mayock's argument did not get physical. Just putting the words "not get physical" in your headline might say to us, the fans, something about Antonio Brown. And something about this Raiders organization for enabling Antonio Brown to keep doing this. That is the Mike Mayock situation. And after he argued with Mike Mayock and had threatened to punch him in the face, he walked away and punted a ball. And he got fined for that too. But you have to be thinking, right? There has to be some kind of Antonio Brown suspension now. There's no suspension. Antonio Brown is not suspended. He is supposed to play week 1 currently. And, would I do that if I was John Gruden? I don't know, because Antonio Brown is such a good receiver. And that is the issue. If Antonio Brown was as good as, if Antonio Brown was pretty much almost every other receiver in the league, he would have been cut by now. And that includes guys like Flash Gordon. That includes guys like Alshon Jeffrey. That includes some of the best receivers in the league. If they would have done all this stuff on the Steelers and Raiders, they would have been cut. But since Antonio Brown has such a good playing reputation, they're not going to cut him. And since the Raiders are quite bad and don't have a lot of weapons this year, they're not going to cut their best player. So that happened. Antonio Brown's supposed to play week 1, and Thursday night, I believe, Antonio Brown dropped a hype video. And the video, shows John Gruden on a phone call with Antonio Brown. And, it's like highly edited. It's highly produced. It almost looks like a Nike ad. And John Gruden's on the phone with Antonio Brown. And he's like, do you want to be a Raider? And Antonio Brown pretty much says yes. I've wanted to be a Raider more than anybody. And how hard he's been working. And but then John Gruden told him to stop, the off the field drama and focus on the field. And then Antonio Brown gave, some complicated answer. But the issue with this video is not everyone's sure if John Gruden knew this phone call was recorded. I saw a report from Deadspin, I believe, and they said that John Gruden was apparently pumped and enthusiastic about the hype video. But anyway, it does show Antonio Brown's conversations with John Gruden and how John Gruden is trying to be a little tough on AB. But, I mean, you should go check it out if you're thinking about it. Go to Antonio Brown's YouTube, and he uploaded the video, and it's a very highly produced hype video. It's quite strange. But that's the Antonio Brown saga. I think it's weird. I guess I support Antonio Brown playing week 1. But what else are you going to do? You're the Raiders. You're not good. You want to play your best player eventually. And apparently he has some kind of connection with Derek Carr. But make your decision. What do you think's up with Antonio Brown? Is it the money? Is it some kind of mental illness? Is it something else? I don't know. That's for you guys to decide. But when we do come back on TR Sports, we're going to be talking about the Indianapolis Colts and Andrew Luck retiring. How will they do? Is Jacoby Brissett ready to step in for Andrew? That's right here on TR Sports. Welcome back to TR Sports, and before we move on to the next story, I just want to say some things. My voice is a little raspy and a little dead right now, but I decided to record the podcast anyway, so that's why my voice may sound a little monotone and a little, not super loud and not a lot of energy in it this week, because I simply can't do that right now. And also, this, summer has ended, so I hope you guys had a good summer. Have fun going back to your jobs and school. I mean, most of you have jobs going through the summer, but you know what I mean. Summer's a great time, and but there's one thing that's not in the summer, and that's the NFL. And the NFL is finally back. We had a Bears-Packers game, which I'm just going to mention briefly. It wasn't really exciting. I don't even think it's really worth talking about. Mitchell Trubisky played terrible. He was one of my breakout season player picks, and he did not perform. Aaron Rodgers played not really well. Devontae Adams did not play well. It was not a good game, and I don't even really want to talk about it because it's not that interesting, and to be honest with you, I didn't even watch the whole thing because it was pretty boring. So let's talk about the Colts now. Andrew Luck and the Colts. So Andrew Luck made a shocking decision about 2 weeks ago to retire from the NFL, and that was quite a story because Andrew Luck was one of the greatest quarterbacks in the league, and not only that, Colts franchise history. And Colts fans got a lot of crap from the media, right? Because they were booing Andrew Luck. But my thing about that was, wouldn't you boo Andrew Luck too? If Andrew Luck and the Colts are on the cusp of their greatest season possibly yet together, and you are a die-hard Colts fan, so you're at the game, you want to see them play, you're getting hyped for the season, You could win the Super Bowl this year. You don't know. And then Andrew Luck retires. Your quarterback retires on you. He quits. I'm sorry, he quit. Like, I know it's the injuries and the rehab, but he did quit on the team. But, I don't support everything they say, but when guys on ESPN like Ryan Clark are calling the fans disgusting and trash, like, the fans is what built you guys up. And it's not that fans should never be criticized, right? Like, fans, if they're throwing beer onto the field and, the game gets canceled, yeah, call the fans disgusting, call them disgraceful. Yeah, they deserve it, right? If being idiots. If the fan calls you, shouts curse words at you, if they call you a racial slur, if they put their middle fingers up, that should be a problem. And if they get physical with players, of course, that is a problem. Criticize the fans. But in the case of Andrew Luck, their great quarterback, leaving them in the middle of a preseason game, and they get called disgusting for booing him. I probably would boo him too. If I was a Colts fan, I would be pretty mad right now. I would be in shock and I'd be mad. Because now you have Jacoby Brissett coming up, who's just not that good. He's fine. He's an average, slightly below average maybe, NFL starter. And we'll talk about the Colts record in a second, but let me talk about the Andrew Luck booing situation a little more quickly. And Andrew Luck after the game said he was hurt, and I think that's what the fans wanted to do. They wanted to get into Andrew Luck's feelings, and I think they were successful in that. And, what you going to do? He retired, but I do believe he might be coming back in a couple seasons to reprise his role as the Colts starting quarterback. But for now, the Colts have Jacoby Brissett, and he is their new quarterback, and he's nowhere near as good as Andrew Luck was, but he has proven himself to be able to win games, and the Colts have that special O-line, the young special, great O-line in front of them now, and, they got the receivers, and they have a pretty good defense. But the question is that enough for the Colts to win, 10, 11 games? I think it could be. I genuinely believe that the Colts could win anywhere between 7 and 10 games. And you may be thinking, Toby, that is about that's a huge scale. If you have less than 7 wins, you're a terrible team. Yeah, that's true. But, I do believe the Colts could get the 10-win mark, and that's what I mean by that little 7 to 10 example right there. I believe the Colts could get to that level with Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett's proven that he could win games. He is throwing to guys like T.Y. Hilton, and he's got a great O-line. He's got the pieces. Can Jacoby Brissett put the cherry on top of the team and take them to the Super Bowl? No. Could he take them to the playoffs? Yes. So I don't think the Colts are going to be terrible. Might still win their division because they have a really crappy division. But let's see what they can do. I'm excited to watch the Colts. And one more time. I know I'm messing up on a lot of words, but my voice is kind of dead right now. And, I really do want to make this for you guys, so I'm sorry about that, but what can you do? So let's continue moving on in the podcast. We'll be right back with a team talk on the Eagles. So, Eagles team talk, Philadelphia, right here on TR Sports. Welcome back to TR Sports, and we are now going to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, Carson Wentz, the city of Philadelphia, all of that right now. So, I'm a Phillies fan. I'm an Eagles fan. I'm a Sixers fan. I'm all three, right? I love the Eagles. I love football. And how are they going to do this season? That's what the team talk is about. I want to break down the Eagles before the season really starts for them. And their first game is Sunday when this podcast comes out. This will come out Sunday morning, actually. So this will come out before the first game. So they're playing the Redskins week 1. And the Eagles should run away with that division easily. the Cowboys might be a threat. It's really for the Cowboys. They have some on seasons and off seasons. My guess is this is one of those off seasons with Ezekiel Elliott missing a bunch of training camp. But I think the Eagles, what makes their path really easy this year is their division. Their division is bad. And if they're able to take advantage of that, manage to beat the Cowboys and try to beat the easy teams with not a lot of talent on them, Giants, they should be able to run away with that division. And if they do that, they should be able to make the playoffs. So that's square one, right? The Eagles have to win the division. Question number 2 is, can Carson Wentz be the quarterback? Can Carson Wentz come play, not get injured, and step up in the big moments? And how good could Carson Wentz be? And how good does he need to be for the Eagles to make the playoffs? And for the Eagles, not only to make the playoffs, but to make the Super Bowl. And that's the question, the big question for the Eagles this season, right? Last season was, what can they do coming off of a Super Bowl winning season? Now the question is, how good does Carson Wentz have to be? Will he be able to be good enough? What are the Eagles going to do without Nick Foles? And, the defense took a step back from last season. They're a little worse. Everyone's a little older. Fletcher Cox, still a beast. So is Brandon Graham. But, Fletcher Cox isn't really considered a top 5 defensive lineman nowadays. He's really not. He's got a lot of talent. He's still one of the best in the league, but he's not exactly what he was 3 years ago, let's say. And Brandon Graham was almost let go by the Eagles, but they decided to keep him probably because, the Super Bowl and everything. And he's still got game, right? But Brandon Graham is not what he was a couple of years ago. And another issue for the Eagles is their cornerback problem. Who's going to be the corner? You have Devontae Maddox, Cravon LeBlanc. Those are the 2 guys that we brought in last season, right? They also have Ronald Darby and Jalen Mills. That's not great. I do believe that Cravon LeBlanc has the potential to be a great cornerback. They call him the strap because he locks down the receiver. He has the potential to be something great, but he isn't quite there yet. And Devontae Maddox is slow, and Jalen Mills I just don't think is a good corner. And Ronald Darby's good. Ronald Darby has his on and off games, but really he's not that bad. So that's another issue. What are the Eagles going to do at corner? And how good? Now it's time. It's time for me to take my pick on how good this Eagles team could be. And my prediction is, first, they're going to win week 1, by the way, against the Redskins. And how good could this Eagles team be? And if Carson Wentz plays like he did in his MVP season, the Eagles are going to go to the Super Bowl. Yep, I believe the Eagles are going to go to the Super Bowl if Carson Wentz did what he did 2 years ago. If Carson Wentz is Carson Wentz last year, the Eagles probably max out at a division round playoff appearance. Could they win? Maybe. But they're going to get there if Carson Wentz plays like he did last year. They might even fall a little short and go to the wild card if Carson Wentz did what he did last year. If Carson Wentz is somewhere in between last year's Carson Wentz and 2 years Carson Wentz, the Eagles could go to the Super Bowl again. So that's good news for Eagles fans, I believe. If Carson Wentz just plays better than last season and is a top 10 quarterback in the league, then the Eagles have a shot at making the Super Bowl. Because their division is bad, defense is pretty good, offense is pretty good, O-line's pretty good, and now they have even more weapons offensively. And they're looking good on that side of the ball. They have a bunch of good running backs. Guys like Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders are leading their backfield, and that should be a great rushing attack to pair with Carson Wentz, throwing to guys like Deshaun Jackson, their new pickup, and Alshon Jeffrey. But they look really good offensively, look good defensively, and they've been drafting not terribly recently. Derek Barnett, not a superstar quite yet, but not a bad pick, right, as their first rounder. And then this year was a new lineman that I'm blanking out on the name for some reason. But he's looking really good. And, the Eagles picked this lineman over the Texans. and the Texans ended up drafting some terrible O-lineman who has not looked good so far at all. But the Eagles had a good pick this year. It's a guy from Washington State. We talked about him a lot, but I'm forgetting his name for some reason. But they've been drafting good, and if the Eagles keep up running the organization like this, and Doug Peterson keeps coaching pretty well, right? He had a really good coaching season 2 years ago, but last season wasn't bad by any means, right? The Eagles had 10 wins, and they went to the wild card, beat the Bears, lost in New Orleans, and I was at that game. By the way. So I believe this Eagles team can go to the Super Bowl anywhere from 10 to 12 wins. I'm saying more in the 10 range this year for the Eagles. When we come back, we're going to do another team talk, except we are going to be switching gears to the Los Angeles Lakers and the NBA right here on TR Sports. TR Sports. It is now time to talk about the Los Angeles Lakers, and more specifically than that, LeBron James's team, right? No. Actually, the Lakers are one of the biggest changes we saw this NBA offseason. They went from being a team that LeBron James led and fell out of the playoffs. They didn't even make the playoffs. And now they have some help for poor LeBron, who had to try to carry this team that was clearly not ready. And LeBron did fail last season, but now he's got some help. And, I mean, the rosters of the Los Angeles Lakers now is pretty stacked. You have Lance Stevenson, Rajon Rondo, Zach Novell Jr., JaVale McGee, Kyle Kuzma, LeBron James, Demetrius Jackson, Dwight Howard, Danny Green, Jared Dudley, Anthony Davis, DeMarcus Cousins, Quinn Cook, Alex Caruso, KCP, Avery Bradley, and Giannis's brother. That is the lineup right now for the Lakers, and that's not bad at all. You have some really good players on this roster. Guys like LeBron and AD, of course, are your two main guys that are going to lead this team. But the bench depth isn't bad at all. You have Danny Green coming off the bench, Rajon Rondo probably starting at point, Kyle Kuzma might be starting at power forward. You have a big center problem right now with guys like JaVale McGee and guys like Dwight Howard and DeMarcus Cousins, who might have, I don't even know what's up with him. I know he got arrested for domestic violence, which is, of course, a big issue, but I don't know what is up with DeMarcus Cousins right now. I'll try to get back to you on that, guys, next week of the podcast. But the roster is ready to compete, and they are ready to win an NBA championship. And if this was 5 years ago, I'd give them a shot. I would absolutely give them a great, great shot. But the Lakers aren't the only team that has gotten super stacked this offseason. Another one is their neighbor. Not only their neighbor, they room together in the same arena, and that is the Clippers. They look even better than this Lakers team. They have Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and a ton of bench depth. It's nuts. This bench depth on this Lakers team is great, but on the Clippers team is even better. So that's the issue for the Lakers, and that's the issue also for the Clippers this year. Who is going to be playing catch-up on each other, right? They're going to be top 3, top 5 teams in the West. But who is going to be better? Because they're both stacked teams, and it should be really exciting to watch the Clippers and Lakers play this season because it's finally a competitive game. But the Lakers do look really good, and LeBron, how many years does he have left in the tank? And that's why they're really making this push. They got rid of all their young guys pretty much except Kyle Kuzma, and they're really, really pushing for the playoffs, and they are really pushing for a title because they have LeBron. This is their time to come through and compete. It is now or never for the Lakers. And if I'm a Lakers fan, I'm excited. Should be a great season. You get to see the Clippers try to battle you, and you are going to figure out a way to win the West. And it's going to be tough because there are great teams all over the league now. This is going to be a really competitive league, and there's a lot of super teams, and that's what's tough about it. And I'm excited to see this Lakers team compete. How many wins do I think? 60 win area. around there. Nothing like insane, but a great team amount of wins. So I say a 60-win team about for this Lakers team. And are they going to win the title? It's possible, but if I had to pick between the Clippers and Lakers right now, it would be the Lakers, but that might change through injury. We'll make my final prediction before the playoffs, which is a long time from now. So yeah, that is the Lakers team talk, and that unfortunately concludes the podcast today. It was a nice news 2 weeks almost. College football started, which I didn't talk about in today's podcast, but I'll probably talk about next week. I'll probably do a lot of college football next week. I'll probably do a lot of NFL. So be ready for next week to be, half college football, half NFL, and maybe if some crazy MLB or NBA story happens next week, we'll talk about that too. So thank you guys so much for watching TR Sports. I'll see you all next week on TR Sports, and have a good school year, have a good work year, whatever you're having. So I'll see you guys later.